We're going to begin our weekly visit with Pierre LeBrun, our hockey insider, with this late-breaking news about Adam Lowry signing a 5-year extension with the Winnipeg Jets. Pierre, we kind of knew it was coming. You and Dregs had talked about it a lot on insider trading. Were you surprised at all at the number or the term? Did any of this surprise you?
I mean, listen, I think that the AEV is a very nice deal for Winnipeg at $5 million. And you're right, Dregs has been on this from the get-go, and it was never in doubt that Adam Lowry would re-sign. He's 32, so with the $25 million in total, I think the win for the player there is the total money, and the win for the team is the AEV at $5 million. And you can imagine, again, how many teams around the league, I know for a fact, would have loved to have added a heart and soul third-line center Adam Lowry had he gone to market July 1st. But let's take stock here what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they signed Kyle Connor to an extension last month. Now they extend their captain. And I remember the day after the Connor signing, I spoke with Jets chairman Mark Chipman. And one of the things that we talked about is, are we going to stop now with this narrative around the league that Winnipeg's a place where no one will play? Because all they keep doing now is extending players.
Yep.
You know, they kept Connor Hellebuck. They kept Mark Scheifele. They've extended Kyle Connor. And now the captain, Adam Lowry. I get that Winnipeg obviously isn't for everyone. They still populate a lot of no-trade lists from players around the league. But there's obviously players, once they've been there and once they're part of the fabric and the culture of that team, that absolutely love being a Winnipeg Jet. And I think that has to be said again after a major signing like this. Hats off to Winnipeg.
Hear, hear. Well said, my friend. Speaking of Darren Dreger, our mutual pal, he said on Insider Trading Tuesday, talking about the Habs and the fact that they've got all these injuries, looking to the trade market, there's not a lot out there right now. And, you know, the prices are extremely high. At the end of the day, we know also that Calgary not really interested in selling off a lot of pieces at this particular point. So, Pierre, have we gotten down to basically the Blues and the Predators as struggling teams that might be open for business?
Well, I would add that St. Louis, because they're frustrated with their start, Doug Armstrong has told teams that he would listen on a lot of players as well. But yeah, there's not a lot of teams. And the thing is, if the Blues make a deal, it's not that they just want to get rid of guys. They want to make hockey deals. So it's not a great time of year. And I expanded actually on the Habs part of things in my column in The Athletic on Wednesday, taking my cue from Dregs there. And there's no question in talking to people around the league. I mean, Habs GM Ken Hughes is making his calls. And the sense that I got of it, Jay, is that it's sort of a dual track approach. Certainly, if the bigger deal is out there between now and March 6th, it's more of a top 6 upgrade. We know all along since the end of last season they've been looking for a number 2 center. But it goes beyond that now. They are open to also, if it's a winger that augments their top 6 and makes sense, they would do that too. So it's not just a number 2 center. But that's a bigger deal, and it's the kind of deal that, frankly, they were open to even before this rash of injuries. It's just that the injuries now has kind of, put some urgency to it if they can actually find a trade partner. And as of right now, I don't think they've been able to. I don't feel like anything's imminent. But there's also, when I said dual track, Jay, there might be a softer deal out there, something that doesn't require a lot of assets, something that can help the bottom of the lineup. So they're looking at that as well. So they are making lots of calls. They're doing their homework, as they should. But I will end it by saying this. They need saves. The goaltending's not been good enough in Montreal this year. And you can talk all you want about the injuries and the need to trade for a forward and all this stuff, and that stuff is true. But they need better goaltending from Samuel Montembeault in particular. And so until they get that, it's, the Canadiens' great start to the season will be hard to keep because they need to get better goaltending. Still, having said all that, no question that the Habs between now and March 6th hope that.
And then there's the Canucks, Pierre, a team I said on this show Monday night totally confuses me. They go from beating Tampa on Sunday 6-2 in pretty dominant fashion to losing to Florida 8-5 the next night. There's just no inconsistency. They're 3 points out of a playoff spot going into Wednesday. We know they added David Kampf. Anything else Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin can do to stabilize this situation?
Well, they confuse you, and I think at times they probably confuse, their own front office in terms of what you just said, the lack of consistency, Jekyll and Hyde. There are times where they've looked, very effective, and other times where they looked overwhelmed. And certainly it's a team that couldn't afford to have injuries down the middle. And there's no question in my mind if Patrick Allvin could have made a trade 3 weeks ago, never mind right now, for a center that could have an impact, that would have already been done. It's just not there right now. But that remains Vancouver's number one focus, I know, from talking to other teams around the league. But you know, the other thing is, you know, they're 30th in the league in goals against. I mean, it has to be a better defensive team at the very least. I mean, you know, you can worry about the inconsistency and whether or not they're generating enough grade A's at 5-on-5. I think those things are true as well. But certainly they can control getting tighter defensively. And I know that's an area of focus, you know, within those walls. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, some teams feel they're better than their record, that they're a bit unlucky when you look under the hood. I think the Canucks in some ways are actually been fortunate that they have the record they have. I think that they've been outplayed for long stretches, you know, because of the injuries and inconsistency, and have actually pulled off some results. So they need certainly to find another level in their game here.
I mentioned the Panthers, Eetu Luostarinen, out week to week. He was burned in a barbecue accident. Sounds terrible. And the Panthers, I mean, I know everybody's suffering from injuries, but Pierre, Sasha Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Tomas Nosek, and now Luostarinen. Part of me is excited, though. I mean, listen, I don't want Luostarinen to lose his hands trying to grill hot dogs, but part of me is excited that Bill Zito is about to get into Bill Zito mode and potentially make a move for some healthy bodies. Are you thinking the same thing?
I can tell you this. I mean, I did an interview with Bill Zito the day after the Barkov news came out that he would be gone at the very least for the regular season. And he told me that day in the interview, we're going to call every team in the league over the next week. Like they know what's available. They know what's out there. Their front office has been the most aggressive in the National Hockey League the last 2 years and trying to add pieces and winning 2 cups in a row and going to 3 straight cup finals. But they're getting guys back. So it's not like, as of right now, they're not going out and replacing Barkov's $10 million because they believe that Barkov will be back for the playoffs or at some point in the playoffs. If that changes, if they get a different medical update closer to March 6th that says he's not, then suddenly they have $10 million to play with. But keep that in mind. Matthew Tkachuk, they hope will be back at some point in December. So they're just in survival mode until then, Jay. And I think they want to see what they have when they start getting healthier. But there's absolutely no question that if they feel that they can get some of those parts back, that they will be aggressive. And, you know, one thing to remember with them is they don't care where they finish in the standings as long as they finish in the top 8 in the East. They do not care about home ice, about winning the Atlantic, about any of that stuff. They're just trying to slide in. And can you imagine if you're a team that wins the Eastern Conference and your prize for that is the suddenly healthier and healthier 8th-seeded Florida Panthers in the first round? What a nightmare that would be.
Yes, I would have to concur on that one. Hey, I mentioned the Stars earlier. The Stars are going to be playing the Canucks on Thursday night. Stars quietly second-best team in the Western Conference, Pierre. And here's the thing. You've been reporting on all these guys. We weren't sure if extensions were going to get done. Marty Necas, Adrian Kempe. Slowly, these guys are all getting signed. And yet, Jason Robertson remains unsigned for the Dallas Stars. And they've got a bunch of their guys locked up long-term. He would be a restricted free agent on July the 1st. How do you see this playing out, Pierre?
Yeah, and that's the key point you just made. He's going to be RFA, not UFA. So there's a bit of a different tone there in terms of the urgency. But to your point, they've locked up pretty much everyone else in that core. He's the one piece left. I can tell you that my understanding is that the Dallas Stars and Jim Nill did have interest in going down the road of extension talks just before the season. And the sense back from Robertson and his agent Pat Brisson is, let's pump the brakes for a moment. Let's let Jason Robertson have a good start, see how the season goes, and then we'll reconvene at some point. And part of that is that he had a slow start last year coming off the foot surgery, as you remember. Still ended up with, I think, 35 or 36 goals. But I think it was from the player side that said, let's just put a pause on things and talk about this again. So I think the Stars are ready to talk extension anytime. They're waiting for the player and his agent to come back to the table. And I suspect that'll happen. He's RFA. He's not like he can walk out the door on July 1st.
Pierre, you're always writing amazing stuff in The Athletic. This week, you speak to Lou Lamoriello. What a legend. His first interview since being let go as Isles GM in the offseason. He's still working as a consultant for the owner of the team, but he's 83 years old now, Pierre. Do you get a sense that his days as a GM are finally over?
I think so. By the way, the youngest 83 I've ever seen. Loves a glass of Brunello, but only one, having had dinner with him a couple of times over the years. Just the one glass. If only I could do that too. If only I could do that. Yeah. But I was. That's a big part of what I got out of the interview, is that he felt he was in a good place now. That time for him to move on to the next phase of his career and his life. That he says he's so fortunate. And part of what he shared is he thought he'd be going. This was going to happen like 10 years ago. His original plan in New Jersey a decade ago was to become a consultant, and then the Leafs hired him, and then he was going to be a consultant in Toronto, and then the Islanders hired him to be GM. So finally now, as he says, enough is enough, and he says he's content to be a consultant. Still loves the game, and he feels like he's the luckiest guy alive with what he's been able to live in six decades of hockey, going back to his days at Providence College.
Before I let you go, how are you feeling about your Cowboys against the Eagles this week?
I mean, listen, I feel a lot better than the last time you asked me about the Cowboys. Obviously, the Eagles, I think the Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, have the best defense in the NFL. I know everyone's criticizing their offense. I think the Eagles are going to be tough, but I'll say this. There's a little flicker after that win in Vegas about the way the defense with the new parts suddenly look and getting overshown back. The offense looks spectacular. Who knows? Divisional games are funny. Wouldn't shock me if the Cowboys pulled it out.
There you go. That's Pierre LeBrun, our weekly visit. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.